The rain came down in sheets, blurring the neon sign of the corner store into a smear of red and blue. Jack Turner, his denim jacket soaked through, hunched against the wind as he crossed the parking lot. He was halfway to his truck, keys jangling, when he saw her, a woman wrestling with 3 overstuffed grocery bags, one slipping from her arms. A can of soup hit the pavement, rolling toward the gutter. "Hey, hold up," Jack called, jogging over before the can disappeared into the storm drain. He grabbed it, then looked up. Her hazel eyes met his, wide with surprise, maybe a little embarrassment. She was maybe 30, with dark hair plastered to her face and a smile that flickered like a candle in the wind. "You okay? Those bags look like they're winning." She laughed, a soft sound that cut through the rain. "Barely. Thanks for the save." Jack didn't think twice. "Let me help. Where you headed?" He hoisted 2 of the bags, their weight surprising him. Canned goods, diapers, a loaf of bread peeking out. Heavy stuff for a woman alone in this downpour. "Just a few blocks," she said, pointing down Maple Street. "I'm Elise, by the way." "Jack." He nodded, falling into step beside her. The rain didn't let up, but something about her kept his attention. Maybe it was the way she tucked a wet strand of hair behind her ear, or how she clutched the remaining bag like it was a lifeline. Questions tugged at him. Who is she? Why is she out here alone in this mess? They walked in silence for a bit, the town of Willow Creek unfolding around them. It was the kind of place where everyone knew your business, where the diner served the same meatloaf every Tuesday, and where Jack's auto shop was barely keeping its doors open. He'd grown up here, left for a while, and came back when life got complicated. Now, at 35, he was just trying to keep his head above water. Elise broke the quiet. "You always rescue strangers in parking lots." He chuckled. "Only when there's soups making a break for it." Her smile widened, and Jack felt a warmth he hadn't in years. It wasn't just her looks, though she was pretty, even soaked to the bone. It was something else, something familiar he couldn't place. They turned onto a quieter street, the houses growing shabbier, paint peeling for porches. Jack's stomach twisted as they approached a corner he knew too well. "Here we are," Elise said, stopping in front of a small, weathered house. The mailbox read 127 Oak Lane. Jack froze. The bags nearly slipped from his hands. "This is my house." Or it had been 20 years ago, before his mom walked away from debt and heartbreak, taking him with her. The porch swing was gone, but the chipped blue paint on the door was the same. Memories flooded back, his dad's laughter, then his absence, the fights, the foreclosure. He blinked, forcing himself back to the present. "You live here?" His voice came out rougher than he meant. Elise tilted her head, catching his tone. "Yeah, just moved in a few months ago. Me and my son, Caleb." She hesitated, like she wanted to ask something, but instead she took the bags from him. "Thanks, Jack." "Really?" He nodded, still reeling. "No problem. You, need anything else?" She shook her head, but her eyes lingered on him, curious, maybe searching. "Not tonight, but maybe I'll see you around." "Yeah, maybe." He stepped back, rain dripping from his cap. As she disappeared inside, that address burned in his mind. 127 Oak Lane. Why there? And why did her smile feel like a memory he couldn't grab? Jack's shop was a mile away, a squat brick building with a flickering Turner's Auto sign. The next morning, he was under a Chevy, wrench in hand, but his thoughts were still on Elise. He didn't believe in fate, but that house wasn't just a coincidence. He'd spent his childhood in those walls, dreaming of fixing cars with his dad before everything fell apart. Now some stranger was living there, raising her kid. It didn't sit right. "Yo, Jack, you gonna finish that oil change, or keep daydreaming?" His buddy Mike leaned against the workbench, sipping coffee that smelled like tar. "Shut it," Jack muttered, sliding out from under the car. "Just thinking." "About what?" "That bank notice." Mike's grin faded. The shop was behind on payments, and the bank wasn't feeling generous. Jack had poured everything into this place, his savings, his pride. Losing it would be like losing his dad all over again. Nah, something else. Jack wiped his hands on a rag. He wasn't ready to talk about Elise or that house. Not yet. Across town, Elise was unpacking those same groceries in a kitchen that felt too big for just her and Caleb. The house was modest, Nothing like the penthouse she'd left behind in Chicago. She'd bought it in cash, quietly, to start over where no one knew her name or her bank account. Being an heiress to a real estate fortune came with strings, and she'd cut them all to protect her 4-year-old son from her ex-husband's schemes. Mark was out of her life, but his threats to take Caleb lingered like a bad dream. She glanced at the fridge, where a drawing of a lopsided car was taped up. Caleb loved anything with wheels, just like the man who'd helped her last night. Jack. There was something about him. His rough hands, his quiet steadiness. She shook her head. Don't be stupid, Elise. You don't have time for this. But Willow Creek was small, and fate had a way of meddling. A week later, Elise's old sedan wouldn't start, stranding her in the preschool parking lot. Caleb was in the back seat, singing to himself, when Jack's truck pulled up. He stepped out, toolbox in hand, like he'd been summoned. Car trouble? He asked, leaning against her hood. She sighed, half relieved, half embarrassed. Yeah, it's been acting up all week. He popped the hood, his movements sure and practiced. Let's see what's going on. As he worked, Caleb peered out the window, eyes wide. Is he fixing our car? The boy whispered. Looks like it, Elise said, her gaze on Jack. He was focused, sleeves rolled up, a smudge of grease on his jaw. She noticed the way his shoulders tensed, like he carried more than just tools. Battery's loose, Jack said after a few minutes. I'll tighten it up, but you need a new one soon. He glanced at Caleb, then back at her. You got someone to help with this stuff? She bristled just a little. I manage. Didn't say you don't. His eyes softened. Just saying you don't have to. Her cheeks warmed. She wasn't used to kindness without strings. Thanks, Jack. Again. He shrugged like it was nothing, but as he packed up his tools, he said, You ever need a hand? I'm at Turner's Auto. Not far. She nodded, and as he drove off, Caleb tugged her sleeve. Mommy, he's nice. Yeah, she murmured. He is. The weeks slipped by, and Jack and Elise kept crossing paths. He'd see her at the diner, sharing fries with Caleb, or she'd wave from across the street when he was closing up shop. Each time, that spark of familiarity grew, though he couldn't pin it down. He started looking forward to those moments, even if he wouldn't admit it. But trouble was brewing. The bank sent another letter, giving Jack 30 days to pay up or lose the shop. He spent nights crunching numbers, but the math didn't lie. He was drowning. Meanwhile, Elise was dodging calls from her ex's lawyer, who'd tracked her to Willow Creek. She kept her wealth hidden, paying for everything in cash, but the stress was wearing her down. Caleb sensed it, clinging to her more than usual. One evening, Jack was locking up when he saw Elise hurrying past, her face tight with worry. Caleb wasn't with her. Hey, he called, jogging to catch up. Everything okay? She stopped, her breath shaky. It's Caleb. He got a fever, and I need to get to the pharmacy before it closes. Come on, I'll drive. He didn't wait for her to argue, just led her to his truck. At the pharmacy, he waited while she grabbed medicine, then drove her back to 127 Oak Lane. The house looked different now, warmer, with a kid's bike on the porch and lights glowing inside. Thanks, Jack, she said as they pulled up. You didn't have to do this. I know. He hesitated, then added, You sure you're okay? You look stretched thin. Her laugh was brittle. That obvious, huh? She looked at the house, then back at him. It's just a lot sometimes. Being a mom, keeping things together. He nodded, understanding more than he let on. You're doing good, Elise. Caleb's lucky to have you. Her eyes glistened, but she blinked it away. You're not so bad yourself, Jack Turner. As he drove home, that address haunted him again. 127 Oak Lane. He didn't know why it mattered so much, but something told him Elise was more than just a stranger passing through. And when he saw a sleek black car parked outside her house the next day, his gut told him trouble wasn't far behind. What's she hiding? And why does it feel like I've known her forever? The black car was gone by morning, but its shadow lingered in Jack's mind. He'd seen it parked outside Elise's house at 127 Oak Lane, sleek and out of place in Willow Creek's rundown neighborhood. It wasn't the kind of car you saw around here, not unless someone was looking for trouble or answers. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that Elise was hiding something, and that nagging sense of familiarity only made it worse. Why does she feel like someone I should know? He was wiping down a wrench at Turner's Auto when Mike strolled in, tossing a crumpled envelope onto the workbench. Another love letter from the bank, boss. You gonna open this one? Jack's jaw tightened. Later. He didn't need to read it to know the deadline was closing in. 2 weeks left to scrape together enough to save the shop. He'd been dodging calls from the bank, but the numbers didn't lie. The place his dad had built, where Jack learned to fix his first carburetor, was slipping through his fingers. Man, you're grumpier than usual, Mike said, leaning against the toolbox. What's eating you? That lady you keep bumping into? Jack shot him a look. Mind your business. Mike grinned. Oh, come on. Whole town's noticed you playing knight in shining armor for that single mom. What's her deal? Jack didn't answer. Truth was, he didn't know Elise's deal. Not really. She was kind, fierce with her kid, but there was a wall around her, like she was guarding more than just her heart. And that house, his house, kept pulling him back to memories he'd buried. His mom's tearful apologies, his dad's empty chair at dinner. He shook it off, focusing on the Chevy in front of him. Work was all he had left to keep him grounded. Across town, Elise was fighting her own battles. Caleb was feeling better, his fever down to a mild sniffle, but the phone call she'd gotten last night had her on edge. Her ex-husband's lawyer had tracked her down, his voice smooth and sharp as a blade. We know where you are, Elise. Mark just wants to see his son. She'd hung up, heart pounding, and stared at the black car outside her window until it drove away. Mark didn't want Caleb. He wanted leverage, a way to dig into her family's fortune. She'd left Chicago to escape that life, trading penthouses for a creaky house in Willow Creek. But the past was catching up. She glanced at Caleb, coloring at the kitchen table, his crayons scattered across a drawing of a truck that looked suspiciously like Jack's. Elise smiled despite herself. Jack. He was steady, real, the kind of man who didn't ask for anything in return. But she couldn't let herself get too close, not when her secrets could ruin everything. Their paths crossed again at the annual Willow Creek Harvest Fair, a small-town affair with hayrides, pie contests, and kids running wild with cotton candy. Elise was there with Caleb, who was tugging her toward a ring toss game. Jack spotted them from the food stall, where he was grabbing a burger. His heart did a funny little flip when he saw her laugh, her hair catching the autumn light. Hey, stranger, he called, walking over. Caleb waved, his face sticky with sugar. Jack, the boy shouted, holding up a stuffed dinosaur he'd won. Look, nice one, buddy. Jack ruffled his hair, then glanced at Elise. You holding up okay? She nodded, but her eyes were tired. Just needed a day out. Caleb's been cooped up since the fever. Jack noticed the way she scanned the crowd, like she was looking for someone or something. That black car flashed in his mind. You sure everything's all right? He asked, quieter now. Her smile faltered. Just family stuff. It's complicated. He wanted to push, to ask about the car, the house, the way she made his chest ache for reasons he couldn't name. But Caleb was watching, and the fair wasn't the place. Instead, he said, Come on, let's get this kid on the hayride. My treat. Caleb cheered, and Elise's face softened. You don't have to. I know, Jack cut in grinning. But I want to. The hayride was bumpy, the air crisp with the smell of hay and cider. Caleb sat between them, chattering about dinosaurs, while Jack stole glances at Elise. Her guard was down just for a moment, and he saw the woman beneath the weight she carried, warm, fierce, a little broken. When their hands brushed reaching for Caleb, neither pulled away. The fair marked a shift. Jack started finding excuses to stop by 127 Oak Lane, a loose porch step he offered to fix a flat tire he patched in her driveway. Elise, in turn, brought coffee to the shop one morning, claiming it was just to say thanks. Caleb tagged along, fascinated by the tools, and Jack let him hold a wrench, showing him how to tighten a bolt. Elise watched, her heart twisting. This was the life she wanted for Caleb. Simple, safe, full of people who cared. But her secrets were a ticking clock. One evening, as Jack was leaving her place after fixing a leaky faucet, he paused at the door. Elise, that black car I saw. Who was it? Her breath caught. She'd hoped he hadn't noticed. Just someone passing through, she said too quickly. He didn't buy it, but he didn't push. If you're in trouble, you can tell me. I'm not going anywhere. She wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Thanks, Jack. I'm fine. He nodded, but as he walked away, that sense of familiarity hit him again, sharper this time. It wasn't just the house. It was her, something in her eyes, her voice. He couldn't place it, but it was there, like a song he'd forgotten the words to. The truth came crashing in a week later, in a way neither expected. Jack was at the shop, working late, when a customer dropped off a Lexus with a busted alternator. The paperwork listed an owner, Elise Harper. Not Elise Carter, the name she'd given him. His gut churned as he dug deeper, finding a news article on his phone from a Chicago outlet. Harper heiress disappears after divorce battle, the headline read. The photo was grainy, but it was her, Elise, in a sleek dress at some gala, nothing like the woman in jeans and a ponytail he knew. She's rich, filthy rich, and she'd lied about it. The house, the car trouble, the cash payments, it all clicked. She wasn't struggling, she was hiding. But why Willow Creek? Why his house? He drove to 127 Oak Lane, the article burning a hole in his pocket. Elise answered the door, Caleb asleep upstairs. She saw the look on his face and froze. Jack, what's wrong? He held up his phone. Elise Harper. That's you, isn't it? Her face paled. How did you? Customer paperwork. Your Lexus. His voice was tight, not angry but hurt. You've been lying this whole time. Why? And why here of all places? She stepped onto the porch, closing the door softly. I didn't want to lie, Jack. I had to. My ex. He's after my family's money, and he'll use Caleb to get it. I came here to disappear, to give my son a normal life. And the house, he pressed. Why 127 Oak Lane? She hesitated, then said, I didn't know it was yours. I bought it because it was cheap, off the radar. I'm sorry if it. It was my home, he cut in, his voice raw. My dad built that porch. My mom lost it when he left. And now you're here, pretending to be someone you're not. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm not pretending to be someone else. I'm just trying to be free. Jack's anger softened, but the hurt lingered. He wanted to trust her, but this changed everything. Before he could say more, headlights swept across the yard. The black car was back, pulling into the driveway. A man stepped out, tall and polished, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Elise, the man said, his voice smooth. We need to talk. Jack tensed, stepping closer to her. Who's this? My ex, she whispered, fear flashing in her eyes. Mark. The air crackled with tension. Mark strode toward them, ignoring Jack. You can't keep running, Elise. Caleb's my son, too. You lost that right when you threatened us, she shot back, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. Jack's fists clenched. He didn't know the whole story, but he knew enough. She said no. Back off. Mark's eyes flicked to Jack, sizing him up. And you are? Someone who cares, Jack said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Mark smirked, but before he could respond, Elise stepped forward. Leave, Mark, or I call the police. He hesitated, then retreated to his car. This isn't over, he said, driving off into the night. Elise sagged against the porch railing, her breath uneven. Jack caught her arm, steadying her. You okay? She nodded, but her eyes were haunted. I'm sorry, Jack, for lying, for dragging you into this. He wanted to be mad, but the fear in her voice stopped him. Instead, he squeezed her arm gently. We'll figure it out. Together. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just them. The lies, the house, the past. It all faded. Then she pulled away, whispering, I don't deserve your help. Jack didn't answer, but as he drove home, one thought burned. She's worth it. But what's she still not telling me? Jack's truck rumbled down the quiet streets of Willow Creek, the memory of Elise's haunted eyes burning in his mind. What's she still not telling me? Her ex, Mark, had driven off after their tense standoff on her porch, but his parting words, this isn't over, hung like a storm cloud. Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He meant what he said, they'd figure out together. But Elise's secrets, her wealth, her past, her reasons for choosing his childhood home at 127 Oak Lane, felt like a wall he couldn't climb. Not yet. Back at her house, Elise tucked Caleb into bed, his small hand clutching the stuffed dinosaur from the fair. Her heart ached as she brushed his hair from his forehead. She'd come to Willow Creek to give him a safe, simple life, but Mark's reappearance threatened everything. And Jack, steady, stubborn Jack, had seen through her lies and still stood by her. She didn't deserve it, but God, she wanted to. The next morning, Jack was at the shop, staring at the bank's final notice. 7 days left to pay, or Turner's auto was done. He hadn't told Elise about it, hadn't told anyone except Mike, who kept saying, "Sell the place, man. Start over." But this shop was more than brick and oil stains. It was his dad's legacy, the one thing Jack had left of him. Losing it would be like losing himself. His phone buzzed. A text from Elise. "Can we talk? At the diner noon?" He hesitated, still stung by her secrets, but typed back, "See you there." The diner was busy, the air thick with the smell of coffee and bacon. Elise sat in a corner booth, her hands wrapped around mug. She looked up as Jack slid in across from her, her smile tentative but real. "Thanks for coming," she said. "I owe you the truth. All of it." Jack leaned back, arms crossed. "I'm listening." She took a deep breath. "My family owns Harper Realty. Big money, big problems. I married Mark thinking he loved me, but he loved the bank account. When I left him, he fought for Caleb, not because he cares, but to control me. I came here to hide, to keep Caleb safe. I bought 127 Oak Lane because it was cheap, anonymous. I didn't know it was your home, Jack. I swear." Her words hit hard, but not as hard as the next ones. "There's more. I think we met before. A long time ago." Jack frowned. "What?" "Summer camp, when we were kids. You were there, right? Camp Willow by the lake." Her eyes searched his. "I was the shy girl who got homesick. You gave me your baseball cap when I was crying by the dock. Said it'd make me brave." The memory crashed over him like a wave. A girl with pigtails, sitting alone, her face streaked with tears. He'd been 12, awkward but kind, and handed her his favorite cap. "You kept it," he said, voice low. "Blue, with a red W." She nodded, a small laugh escaping. "It's in a box somewhere. I never forgot you, Jack. When I saw you in the rain that night, helping with my groceries, it felt like fate." He stared at her, the pieces clicking. That familiarity, the pull he couldn't explain, it wasn't just the house. It was her. But the hurt lingered. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" "I was scared," she admitted. "Of Mark, of losing this life, of you seeing me as some rich girl playing pretend. I'm not that person, Jack. I'm just me." He wanted to stay mad, but her honesty disarmed him. "I see you, Elise. I always have." Her eyes glistened, and she reached across the table, her hand brushing his. "I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. For Caleb. For me. Maybe for us." Jack's heart thudded. He didn't know what us meant, but he wanted to find out. The next few days were a blur of small steps and big risks. Elise hired a lawyer to deal with Mark, using her family's resources to file a restraining order. She was done hiding, but she kept her wealth quiet in Willow Creek, wanting to be just Elise, not the heiress. Jack, meanwhile, threw himself into saving the shop, working double shifts and calling every contact he had for loans. Nothing panned out, and the deadline loomed. One evening, Elise stopped by the shop with Caleb, who ran to Jack with a drawing of a wrench. "For you," he chirped. Jack grinned, taping it to the wall beside his workbench. "Thanks, kid." He glanced at Elise, who was holding a paper bag. "What's this?" "Dinner," she said, pulling out sandwiches and a thermos of soup. "You've been working nonstop. Thought you could use it." They ate on the shop's back steps, Caleb playing nearby with a toy car. The air was cool, the stars just starting to peek out. Jack felt a peace he hadn't in years, sitting there with her. But the weight of the shop's fate pressed down. "Bank's taking it," he said finally, staring at the ground. "Can't make the payments." Elise's face fell. "Jack, I'm so sorry. This place, it's your heart, isn't it?" He nodded, throat tight. "My dad's dream. Mine too." She hesitated, then said, "I could help. I have money." No, his voice was firm, but not harsh. "I appreciate it, but this is my fight. I'll figure it out." She nodded, respecting his pride, but her mind was already turning. She couldn't let him lose everything, not after all he'd done for her. The turning point came unexpectedly. Elise was at the library, researching local grants, when she found a small business fund for Willow Creek. She spent hours filling out an application for Jack, using every detail she'd learned about the shop, its history, its role in the community. She submitted it anonymously, knowing he'd never accept her help outright. Meanwhile, Mark made one last move. He showed up at 127 Oak Lane while Jack was there, helping Caleb fix his bike. The man's polished shoes crunched on the gravel, his smile cold. Elise, let's make this easy. Sign over partial custody, and I'll leave you alone. Jack stood, placing himself between Mark and the porch. She said no. You get a court order. Mark's eyes narrowed. Stay out of this, grease monkey. Before Jack could respond, Elise stepped forward, her voice steel. You don't get to scare me anymore, Mark. I've got a lawyer, a restraining order, and a town full of people who'll back me up. Leave. Mark looked at Jack, then at Elise, and saw he was outnumbered. He backed off, muttering, You'll regret this. But as his car peeled away, Elise felt a weight lift. She turned to Jack, tears in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. He shrugged, a small smile tugging at his lips. Told you. Together. That night, they sat on the porch, Caleb asleep inside. Elise leaned against Jack's shoulder, the silence comfortable. I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything, she said. I was afraid you'd walk away. I'm still here, he said, his voice low. But we gotta be honest from now on. Deal. Deal. She looked up at him, and for a moment, he thought about kissing her. But the timing wasn't right. Not yet. Instead, he squeezed her hand, and she squeezed back. A week later, Jack got a letter from the Willow Creek Business Fund. Approved. A grant to cover his back payments and keep the shop open. He stared at it, stunned, then drove to Elise's house. She was in the yard, watching Caleb chase a butterfly. You did this, didn't you? He asked, holding up the letter. She smiled a little guilty. I just filled out the form. You did the rest. He shook his head, gratitude overwhelming him. Thank you, Elise. They stood there, the distance between them shrinking. But life wasn't a fairy tale. Elise still had to navigate co-parenting with Mark's legal team, and Jack had emotional scars from his past that wouldn't heal overnight. They weren't ready for grand promises, but they were ready for something, coffee at the diner, fixing bikes together, maybe more. I've been thinking, Jack said, rubbing the back of his neck. Maybe we could start over. You, me, Caleb. Take it slow. Her smile was brighter than the Willow Creek sun. I'd like that. As they watched Caleb laugh, the house at 127, Oak Lane felt less like a ghost and more like a home again. Their future wasn't certain, but it was theirs to build, one small, kind moment at a time. Will they make it work, or will the past pull them apart again? If this story touched you, comment where you're from and subscribe to the channel. Share your thoughts on Jack and Elise's journey. Did their second chance inspire you?